Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today, we welcome Devin Bajatnia. He's a medical student, and today's Kevin MD article is The Case for a Standard Pre-Med Major in U.S. Universities. Devin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so tell us a little bit about your story, and then we'll jump right into your Kevin MD article.
Yeah, so originally born and raised in Los Angeles. I went to Moore Park Community College and then transferred to University of California, Santa Barbara. And then I went ahead to Kentucky for medical school, and now I'm back in Los Angeles.
All right, wonderful. And you write that there should be a standard pre-med major. My daughter is currently a pre-medical student, so I'm very familiar with the pathway. So tell us what your article is about for those who didn't get a chance to read it.
Yeah, so back when I was in undergrad and I was trying to choose between different majors, I thought that since I was going the pre-med path, there would be a comprehensive pre-med major. So I soon found out there wasn't, and the closest thing to that was bio. A lot of students do the bio path. So as time went on, I thought, it would only make sense to have a comprehensive pre-med major. So what I did was I took the skeleton of a bio major and then kind of detailed what should be there and what shouldn't be there. First 2 years is pretty much the same as a bio major. You'll have your general education courses, which I think are vitally important for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think that if someone decides to go the medicine route, it makes for a more well-rounded doctor. And then if they decide not to go the medicine route, it gives them options to explore other areas, arts, humanities, things of that nature. And then, of course, the science prereqs are very important for any entrance exam that you're taking. And where the bio major and my major converge, or I should say diverge, is during the third year. So that's where you'll have, instead of your upper division bio courses, you'll actually have a course that's for a MCAT or DAT review. And one of the things that was difficult for me and a lot of my peers was studying for the MCAT alongside our normal course load. So having that within the curriculum, I think, is vitally important. And then, of course, having an interview course to help you with those skills and a research course to beef up your CV a little bit. And then the fourth year, at this point, you would have taken your entrance exam between your third and fourth year. So during the fourth year, you would have anatomy, physiology, things to get you prepared for the first 2 years of medical school.
So for those who aren't familiar with the pre-medical pathway, as it stands currently, any major can apply to medical school, and there is not currently a dedicated pre-med major. You just have to take these prerequisite courses. But we have a variety of majors that apply to medical school. It could be any humanity, it could be music, it could be math, it could be engineering, it could be business, and of course, it could be biology as well. Now, before talking about your curriculum, your proposed curriculum in detail, what's the reason in the first place why there isn't a pre-med major at all to begin with? Why do medical schools value a variety of majors for their students coming in?
Yeah, so I think that there's definitely pros and cons of both. I think having the ability to take any major and then just take the prerequisites is really interesting. And my pathway was not, going down the bio pathway. I was actually a bio psych major. So being able to go into that, or I've had classmates who are history majors or English majors. I think those things are really cool. And one of the benefits is you get more well-rounded physicians coming in and you get them from completely different, mentalities, different ways of thinking. So that's the one thing I like. The negative side of that, of course, is that the standardization isn't there. And that can be potentially a problem with the major that I've outlined. It allows you to go not just for medicine, but for dental, PA, really anything along the medical field. So if you end up finishing and deciding, I want to go into something else, it's kind of more of a generalized degree.
So it sounds like almost like a not a pre-med major, but kind of a pre-health major because they
Pre-health
can.
major, yeah, exactly.
So what kind of gaps do you see in our current system where students can major in anything that they want? Isn't the medical school prerequisites, isn't that good enough, or do you still continue to see gaps in the current system?
Yeah, it's a great question. I still continue to see gaps. And the problem is I've noticed that a lot of these pre-med courses, well, they say you up really for the MCAT and not as much for medical school. So when you have students who are going from, let's say, a anthropology perspective and majoring in that, sadly, when they come into med school, sometimes they have a little bit more difficulty than the traditional bio or biochem majors.
Is that really true? Is there data to support that? People who do come from humanities struggle in medical school in contrast to those who take the harder science majors?
No, you know what? I actually haven't looked at the data for that. It's kind of been more personal experience. At least I've noticed for me, I had classmates who had already taken these courses, and for them it was a little bit easier than for me who had never seen it and just been, introduced to it for the first time. So once you get in, I mean, my classmates who are different majors ended up figuring it out, so it worked well for them. But I thought, is there a way to make this easier for people so that when they come in, they feel a little bit more prepared? Everyone kind of feels on the same level playing field.
Now, in terms of a dedicated pre-med major, what if they change their minds, like you said, during that pre-medical course? Because the more people find out about medical school or being a doctor, and some students, they say they listen to my podcast and they may not want to become a doctor after listening to my podcast. Let's say they change their mind during that path. So, what kind of recourse does a dedicated pre-med major have?
Yeah. So that's the thing that I noticed about a lot of other majors is that when you are stuck in that streamlined, let's say, bio major, you're forced to take, of course, the lower division courses and the upper division. And by the time that students realize they may not want to go that direction, they've already completed such a high volume of their course load already, so it might be difficult. What I like about mine is that it gives people a little bit more flexibility. So even up until your fourth year, you're still kind of, looking around and seeing what other options there are. And it gives you the opportunity to maybe jump or trampoline to something that's a little bit closer. And since you have a lot of those courses already taken, it's not going to be as difficult because you're not really forced into a certain place.
Talk to me about the various electives that you would propose in your pre-med major, inclusion of the humanities and foreign languages. So tell us of the flexibility in that respect.
Yes, exactly. So that's the other thing is that we kind of got to ask ourselves, do we want physicians to be pillars of the community or just another occupation? And I think that having them as pillars of the community, having them as leaders is very beneficial. So going for a foreign language will diversify, of course, your language base, which makes you connect to a lot of different types of people. Having anthropology base allows you to really kind of see how history has affected human beings and culture. And then any of the arts and humanities courses that are already available, I think are very beneficial. That's why I love the kind of the general education requirements because they really allow you to explore all the different options that there are out there.
What kind of challenges do you foresee universities having if they do choose to implement a dedicated pre-med major?
I think that one of the biggest problems they're going to have is that they are going to have a lot of students who are needing to pick something in the pre-health field. And so while you can switch to a different major within that field, if you end up completing the major, your basis really was to go into something health related. So I think that's one of the problems of the standardization is that it doesn't allow for flexibility once the major has been completed.
And then when you propose these ideas, what kind of reaction do you get? Give us a spectrum of reaction that you got.
Yeah, so on the one hand, a lot of people don't want to kind of change is something they don't want to be a part of, which I totally understand. So there's a little bit of apprehension, but I've also had people on the other side of the spectrum where they're very excited for this kind of new major to be implemented, and they think it could be very helpful for students as well as faculty administration and things like that. Because a lot of the time when they're directing students on what direction to go, they have a little bit of trouble because sometimes the student doesn't know. And so it's hard for administration to guide them in the right direction. So this gives them the option to explore a lot of different avenues.
So as far as you know, are any universities coming up or thinking about a dedicated pre-health major like the one you're talking about?
As far as I know, and I've looked around a little bit, I haven't seen anything. And I think that, you know, taking my model and not necessarily copying it, but adapting it is one of the best options. The other thing I've looked at is I think that the best place for it to be implemented first is in the US because I know that a lot of other countries have different systems. And so I don't know how a standardized major would necessarily work for them, if it would be better or worse. So if somebody decides to take it and pick it up and kind of mess with it a little bit, I think that's the best option. Just, asking questions and having these discussions is very important.
You said one of the challenges in the current system was trying to study for the MCAT concurrently with other coursework. So tell us more about that challenge.
Yeah, so I remember when I was studying for it, I'd pretty much finished all of my prereq courses, which is what you need for the MCAT, and then I had a full course load, and then on top of that, I had to, study for the MCAT or take a review course for that. And I remember kind of being bogged down by a full load and then taking a whole nother course on top of it. So I thought if we implement it into the curriculum, it's going to allow students to really sit down and focus on it. And by the time that their third year has come, they've already finished all the prereqs necessary. So I think they're going to have a huge edge, a huge advantage to other students who have to take it alongside their other courses.
Now, I know that current pre-medical requirements don't just include academic requirements, right? There's a research component, there's volunteering, there's shadowing, and there's clinical experience. Now, when you talk about a dedicated pre-med major, how do those other components play into a dedicated pre-med major?
Yeah, so getting your CV up to date and having, good extracurriculars and good research is a very important thing. So the the place where volunteering kind of lies is that all students should do some sort of volunteering to get exposed to medicine or the hospital system. So that area I haven't implemented into the actual course load only because it's so diverse. A lot of people, you can do so many different things for extracurriculars. However, where I have implemented more of a kind of core curriculum is for interviews and for research. So we know that across the board, research is really important for applications. So, a lot of students don't have the opportunity to pursue research. So having it within the course, I think is really valuable for students.
So, short of a wholesale pre-med major, are there any incremental changes that you can make to our current system? Because, like you said, there aren't, as far as you know, any universities that's considering a wholesale pre-med major. So, how about in terms of more feasible changes, more incremental changes to our current pre-med track? What kind of ideas do you have for that?
Yeah, so I think one of the best things is having a few courses in whatever, if there's a major, let's say a bio major at university that is already having a lot of students go that path for medicine, I think that having courses like anatomy and physiology and maybe, a bioethics course, things of that nature that set you up for the first couple of years is really helpful because the students who end up taking those for the first time, of course, in medical school, they're taking it again, and seeing all that information again for the second time just really helps you ingrain it a lot easier. So small changes to kind of curriculum in the pre-med space, I think is going to be very beneficial for medical school.
So, are you talking about making those a requirement, kind of adding on to the biology, chemistry, organic chemistry, and physics? You should also do kind of a medical ethics, maybe public policy to some other pre-med courses.
Exactly. Exactly. So maybe one of the things I remember looking at when I was looking at the bio courses is a zoology course, for example. And while that it can be helpful if you're going the veterinary route, let's say, for the human health route, it's not necessarily as vital. So I think giving students a little bit more flexibility on their upper divisions to tailor it more towards what they want to go in, whether it's, PA or nurse practitioner or if they want to go into public policy, I think that's going to help students kind of focus in their studies.
And as far as you know, any movement for the AAMC to modify the pre-med curriculum requirements?
So far, nope, not really.
We're talking to Devin Bajatnia. He's a medical student. Today's Kevin MD article is The Case for a Standard Pre-Med Major in U.S. Universities. Devin, let's end with some take-home messages they want to leave with the Kevin MD audience.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest quotes actually that I've had that's helped me out this past year has been just because you don't like the chapter doesn't mean you won't like the book. And that's one of the quotes that has really helped me. I think as human beings, we all go through difficult times, and especially as med students. So I think it's important to remember that you might have some rough patches, but it doesn't mean overall it's going to be bad for you.
Devin, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and insight. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you.